Howdy, howdy!
Why, hello, probers.
And welcome to...
But it was aliens.
Alright, you can do it. That voice is more on point than you realise, having no idea what we're going to cover, but this is the Extraterrestrial Comedy Podcast, where we probe paranormal shenanigans to determine whether the source of those shenanigans really was paranormal. Woo! I'll be hosting today's episode, and my name is Kev. Alongside me, with no idea as to what's coming up, is Mr. Granville Moonwalker. Well, usually the co-host would have no idea, but today, Mr. Moonwalker may have a slight idea once he learns what we are covering, for Mr. Moonwalker knows the end of this story. Well, not the end, but the bit before the end. That you'd think was the end if you didn't know the real end.
So I know the beginning?
No. Well,
The beginning of the end.
actually, you might know the beginning as well, but you may know most of the middle too. But you don't know the very end.
Do I know the beginning of the end?
Yes,
Ooh.
you absolutely do.
So I was definitely right in that I know the beginning.
I hazard a guess that as soon as I say the first 7 or 8 words, you're going to know this tale immediately.
Okay.
But you're not going to know it all, but we'll see. For we begin our tale today in Barbados.
Ooh.
For this was the birthplace of today's subject. Yes, Stede Bonnet. It is time.
Steed.
For those...
For those unaware, Steed's revenge is currently dead. The battery is dead. It has no power to it. I haven't sold it yet. It's literally sitting on my mother's drive.
That's the name of Moonwalker's previous car.
Really need to get it sorted out. However, Steed's vengeance is alive and kicking.
AKA Steve's overcompensation.
That 380 brake horsepower beast is flying around the streets.
For those unfamiliar, you can check back to our Blackbeard's Hole, the Ghost of a Pirate Legend episodes 121 and 122, for we have delved into part of Steed's life before. Stede was born to wealthy English parents, Sarah and Edward, during 1688 on Barbados. The eastern Caribbean island. Barbados had been taken from indigenous peoples by the Spanish in the late 1400s.
Fuck them.
F the Spanish. At that time period, at least. The Portuguese around 1532. F the Portuguese at that time period. And after being abandoned circa 1620, an English ship called the Olive Blossom arrived on the island in 1625. F the Olive Blossom. In 1627, the first permanent English settlers arrived in Barbados. Stede inherited his more than 400-acre sugar plantation family fortune around 1694, but joined the Barbados Army. After achieving the rank of major, Stede retired and brought an estate to settle down in. It's likely that Stede's army posting was somewhat of a formality, as in the military, Stede oversaw local land and interests. There's no documentation to suggest that Stede ever went to battle, for example, in the War of Spanish Succession, or even that Stede went to sea. And it's most likely that Stede's owning of plantations quelled the likelihood of rebellions. Stede's family industry reportedly oversaw 94 enslaved people and helped to keep the order. After retiring, and as expected of a gentleman in the 16 and 1700s, Stede would marry one Mary Allonby in 1709. Stede spent nearly a decade raising a family, including 3 sons and a daughter, but would come to regret that marriage.
Well, fuck Steve for having enslaved people.
Yeah, I don't... His family...
I know it's a sign of the times.
I mean,
But-
that doesn't really excuse it, does it? It's
Nope.
shit. Absolutely shit. I just don't know whether Stede was the figurehead of, well, the
Whether
centre
he just
of
took it
the...
over
Yeah,
or decided
yeah.
he was going to have.
Because obviously we know a little bit about where Steve heads next, and it isn't
Steve.
necessarily overseeing.
I thought you called him Steve.
Why do you think he'd regret that marriage?
Maybe she was a gold digger. She weren't looking for no broke.
Stede was in need.
Mm.
Stede had an itch that Mary couldn't scratch.
Yeah, maybe she took him for all his money. Maybe she
Maybe.
sold his estate off once he'd gone out to sea.
Yeah, well, sign o' the times.
Or maybe she gave him the itch.
That she couldn't scratch. Well, let's get into it, shall we? It's said that Stede experienced some discomforts in the married state. I have it on good faith that Stede's wife would continually leave the toilet seat up. She spoiled the ending to The Sixth Sense, she farted at the dinner table, and she didn't think that mango was orange coloured. I jest, but the leading theory from Oldham Records is that Stede literally just got fed up of his wife's nagging. That's it. He's just had enough.
How old was he when he married her?
Ah, shite. Did I not say?
Because I don't know if it would be such a thing then, but thinking now, how you react to things as a youth, one of the youths, compared to now is so different.
So he was 21, I believe. Around 2022.
I'd have got irritated with so much.
Decisions are made on a whim
Yep.
at that age.
And I couldn't care less. But now we're done. Peace. I ain't said, I'm not. Nope. I remember at a time I was given an ultimatum. I would deliberately go against the ultimatum because it was given to me. Fuck you.
I am out. I got an itch. You
I don't respect
Can't.
your authority.
scratch. Stede, a man who had it all. Love, allegedly truthfully, money, the respect of his neighbours, a shiny first edition Charizard, land. He had it all, but Stede snapped and made a decision to leave home and become a pirate despite never having sailed a day in his life.
He had everything but adventure. There was no risk in his life. Everything was handed to him.
Maybe you nail on the head.
He wanted that danger.
High
Watch
voltage.
yourself.
We went in two very different directions there. You went mystical, I went electric 6. Legal records, as reported by archaeologists of the North Carolina Maritime Museum, David Moore, do also indicate that around 1717, Stede borrowed around £1,700, which today is more than $400,000. So it's possible what came next was due to a lot of stress going on in Stede's life, unless Stede borrowed that money for what he did, of course. One of Stede's children, Allenby, had also passed away in 1715, so there was definitely a lot for Stede to deal with. On top of all of this, Stede allegedly supported James Stuart, the Old Pretender, as King of England over the German George I. Catholics had been excluded from the throne, meaning that Queen Anne was succeeded by German-speaking George as her closest living Protestant relative, but James was English and attempted to claim the throne unsuccessfully during 1715. That's a lot of political and personal shit going on. Some historians do theorise too on whether Stede was actually gay and wanted to live his life freely, which he could do at sea. Stede would pirate regardless, of course. And of course.
Who did Stede borrow this money from? Was it from the bank? or from a particular person indeed? Was it a loan shark? Is that why he went out to pirate? Because he knew that person was too shit scared to be out on sea?
A moneylender.
So a loan shark. A shark scared of the water.
Do you know what? In these times...
Land shark.
Everyone who lent money was a loan shark, really, because it wasn't regulated like... Well, not that loan sharks are regulated, but financial arenas weren't regulated as they are today. If you didn't meet your debts, you were buggered.
That is true.
If Stede didn't pay his debts, they might have popped a Stede on the heed.
So, his wife's nagging. He's got all this stuff going on in the background.
Yeah. Owes money. Unsettled politically and religiously, potentially.
I take it this is meant to be... Historians theorise on whether Stede was actually gay.
Yeah.
Not Steve. Like you've written.
Autocorrect. Constantly changes Stede to Steve. Absolute battle trying to write research notes on this episode.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure Steve hadn't just popped up out of nowhere.
Most pirates steal their first ship or captain a second ship of their pirate lord, not Stede. Being a gentleman, Stede purchased his sloop legally in December 1716. Its name?
The Revenge!
Indeed, the Revenge. Stede is not known to have had any enemies. Any enemies to seek revenge against, by the way. But if you're trying to be a pirate...
Sounds cool.
...is a piratey name. Stede fitted the ship with 10 cannons, and rather than recruiting on a share of future plunder, Stede employed a crew of more than 70 would-be pirates attracted from the taverns of Bridgetown, Barbados, paying them out of his own pocket rather than promising regular shares of that booty as most pirates would do.
I would just like to interject here. Mm-hmm. Bridgetown is where my family are from.
Hey!
Got a pirate in my blood.
Yarr. Arr. Whilst all this planning was taking place, Stede told the locals he was planning to work up trade with neighbouring islands. Then, without warning, or so much as a goodbye bang with his wife, Stede vanished, leaving little Edward, Stede and Mary behind, all at less than 5 years of age. Once prepared, Stede set sail for Virginia, an area of heavy commerce. It turns out that Stede may actually have been quite successful to begin with, having taken the Anne of Glasgow, the Endeavour of Bristol, the Young from Leeds, and the Turbot from Barbados. All ships were plundered, and the crew mostly released to be picked up by later passing ships, except for the Turbot, which was burned, possibly because they may have known Stede. In fact, it appears that Stede torched every Barbados ship that he ever encountered. Stede headed to New York to release some captives and sell his booty with no questions asked, taking 2 more ships on the way. Stede then took 2 further ships in the Carolinas, stripping one, but the other was from Barbados. Stede took that Barbados sloop to an inlet off North Carolina, using it to clean the Revenge's hull and stripping it for wood before burning the remains. Stede had had a good start to his pirate career, although truth be told, Stede relied heavily upon his paid crew and their knowledge of the seas, and spent much of his time in his quarters reading books, whilst others, mainly the quartermaster, did the typical captain duties.
So he was the captain behind the captain. What we're saying here is, if this captain decided, fuck Stede, we're gonna be pirates, we're gonna loot all this booty and like split it like normal pirates, they could have probably made more money. The fact that Stede was paying them, depending on what he was paying them, he might have been paying his second in command more than everyone else to keep him
Probably.
on side.
Yeah.
So you could say he was living on borrowed time for a mutiny. I'm the captain now.
Arguable. Stede is obviously, he's got a bit of a reputation, bless him, today. I wonder how he was perceived by potential pirates when he was trying to recruit. Whether they saw him as an easy ride. They were
illegitimate
like, holy shit.
pirate. An illegitimate pirate.
Callback. Perhaps. I mean, the idea of a reliable wage as a pirate is pretty attractive, potentially.
I suppose it depends on if you're talking about those that were under his overall command or other pirates looking in.
Both. A wage is a wage. You're getting paid regularly when others might not ever get success.
Some might have not even bothered. Just like,
Well,
you
most
want to
pirates
do it that way. You want to do it that way. It's fine.
The treasure would be shared. If a pirate crew wasn't successful, they weren't getting paid. Whereas these folks, they're getting paid regardless.
Kind of a, don't you bring your new age thinking round here, boy.
That could encourage either loyalty or laziness.
Also, it would, if you're getting paid regardless, but you seem to be constantly plundering really good ships and getting a lot of booty.
Yeah, that might start to turn. Yeah. Hold on, you're only paying me this, whereas actually we're making a whole lot more.
We're missing out on 6 or 7 times.
Stede could be incredibly stupid or incredibly smart, depending on his success. He's taken a punt, really, hasn't he?
As a pirate, which would you prefer?
The easy time?
I think I'd actually go the other way. And a portion of the booty.
As a captain, I'd probably prefer the other way.
Because I think a portion of the booty would make me more inclined to fight and I'd have more fun as a pirate. Whereas I think, like you said, it would just breed laziness, and you'd see
That's what I want.
You'd see a small ship, and you'd just be like,
"You folks go out and have the battles. I'll just I'll watch the quarters."
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything.
Getting paid the same as you to do nothing.
Exactly, which could then breed discontent amongst everyone else, because then others looking at people that aren't doing jobs or aren't doing this, aren't doing that. They could be getting paid more because they're doing one thing or the other. Whereas if you're just splitting the booty, it's equals.
Split
Everyone pulls in.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I'm booty splitting.
Next, nearly 6 months into his pirate life, Stede headed for pirate capital Nassau in September 1717. On the way, Stede encountered a merchant ship and approached this ship for an easy win. It turned out, though, that this was no merchant ship. It was a Spanish man-o'-war. The Revenge was badly damaged and barely escaped, with many of the crew being killed. Meanwhile, Stede himself was seriously wounded. The ship basically farted into Nassau. By this point, many of the crew had twigged that Stede didn't know what he was doing and just diverted to the commands of his senior crew, and this, combined with Stede's insistence on attacking a Spanish warship, led the crew to lose faith in Stede. It was in Nassau that a certain pirate named Blackbeard feasted his eyes on the sorry state drifting into Nassau, needing repairs, and couldn't believe his luck. Stede's Revenge was fitted with more guns, 12, as Stede agreed to give Blackbeard control of Revenge, a ship more capable than Blackbeard's, but which Stede lacked the knowledge and charisma to captain. We've covered much of the next course of events on episodes 121 and 122 of But It Was Aliens, as we said when I probed Blackbeard's hole.
I suppose it was his lack of knowledge. Was it? I don't suppose actually, but was it his lack of knowledge that led him to attack of a man of war in terms of he had no idea what it was capable of.
Well, lack of knowledge, overconfidence.
Or that's what I mean. Or just the fact that he was so overconfident he thought his ship would be able to handle it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Either way, he effed up.
Effed right up.
Together with Blackbeard, Stede would see success along the east coast as they took merchant ship after merchant ship. 11 were plundered off Delaware Bay. On the 29th of September, the Revenge plundered a sloop called Betty.
That was yesterday.
On the 12th of October 1717, Captain Codd's ship was taken and Captain Codd would describe Stede. Stede was walking the deck in his nightshirt, lacking any command and still unwell from his wounds. Next up, the Revenge plundered Spofford and Sea Nymph. On the 22nd of October 1717, the Robert and Good Intent were plundered. This was a prolific period. The Revenge then returned to the Caribbean in November, where success continued. On the 17th of November 1717, a large ship named Concord was attacked by two ships, which the captain described as one having 12 guns and 120 men, and the other having 8 guns and 30 men. Stede! The Concord fought back but ultimately lost. As we know, this ship was sailed to the Grenadines, where it was transformed into Blackbeard's famous flagship, Queen Anne's Revenge. Eventually, during December 1717, Stede and Blackbeard would part ways. You could argue that now that Blackbeard had a better boat, he didn't need Stede and his revenge. Maybe Blackbeard got fed up of Stede, or maybe Stede had learnt enough to go out on his own. We don't really know. What we do know is that all was quiet on the Stede front for a couple of months until March 1718, where Stede went after a ship named the Protestant Caesar. Stede failed, and many of his crew were done. Very shortly after, the Revenge would pass Queen Anne's Revenge once more, and most of Stede's crew deserted Stede to join Blackbeard. Stede himself would end up back on Blackbeard's Queen Anne's Revenge as a guest, much to his former crew's surprise, whilst Blackbeard's man, Lieutenant Richards, took command of the Revenge. Stede confided in those few loyal crew members he had left that he was ready to give piracy up if Spain or Portugal would have him. Blackbeard went after Protestant Caesar and had it burned, either because it was from Boston, an area that had targeted pirates, or because it got the better of Blackbeard's boy, Stede. We can't be sure.
Oh, we can't.
Did he go after the ship that conquered his interest, shall we say?
Now, if he went after it because it was from Boston, was he clever enough to tell Stede that he went after it because it targeted, it got the better of Stede?
Keeping Stede on side. Interesting. I don't know the answer, but interesting theory.
There's a lot of boats around to be plundered, isn't there, at this time?
Well, there weren't any aeroplanes, were there? There wasn't. There weren't any nothing, there weren't.
Can you imagine you're just walking along and all of a sudden a cannon hits us? Like, imagine the cannon doesn't hit the boat but hits you. It misses the boat and just hits you.
Well, shit, that's a bad day.
Or you're asleep and then you just get targeted by cannon fire. That must be horrendous.
I mean, we might get into something a bit similar to that a bit later. Whilst Richards was commanding the Revenge, Jamaican sloop the Adventure was captured, with Israel Hands placed as captain of the Adventure.
Israel.
Along with a Spanish vessel, making it 4 ships in Blackbeard's fleet around this time. The group pirated from Honduras and Havana to the Bahamas. Next, the fleet hit South Carolina, and this is where Blackbeard blockaded Charlestown for about 6 days, allegedly for dick medicine and supplies. We covered this in a lot of detail in those episodes 121 and 122, as I said earlier.
Mercury.
Indeed, let's not talk about that because it's grim. After this significant event, everybody knew the name of Blackbeard. The heat would be on, so the fleet headed towards Topsail Island. Blackbeard planned to seek the royal pardon from North Carolina Governor Charles Eden, and Stede agreed to go in first to test the waters. On the way there, Queen Anne's Revenge ran aground and sunk. It's not clear if this was an accident or, more likely, if Blackbeard planned this because everybody knew that ship and Blackbeard had a plan. Stede saw the governor and successfully acquired permission to seek a privateering license to attack Spanish shipping around St. Thomas, which was planned to be Stede's next destination. When Stede returned to the other ships, the Revenge was stripped and the Adventure sunk, and Stede's loyal crew marooned. The other sloop was nowhere to be seen. Blackbeard did Stede dirty and was gone. Blackbeard had actually turned up to see Governor Eden one day after Stede had left. They nearly crossed paths.
See?
Blackbeard sent Stede in as his guinea pig.
Keeping Stede on side.
To ultimately dick him.
Oh, I've done this for you. Now, you go do something for me.
I'll show you how to be a pirate. I'll show you what to do. I'll give you all this plunder. You go in and check the waters, because they know me. They don't know you.
You can test everything that I wish to test. You test it first. If it works, I'm in.
You're really good. You know how to talk to these people. You'll be better than me. You're a great pirate.
Pirate Stede.
Stede gathered up the remaining beached crew and also those marooned by Blackbeard on a nearby island and vowed revenge. Stede would search, going where he heard rumours of Blackbeard, but Stede would never see Blackbeard again. There was a complicating factor in Stede's abiding by the recently granted pardon. 1. Blackbeard had stolen all of Stede's food and provisions. 2. It was hurricane season on St. Thomas. Stede returned to piracy. But Stede was clever, you see, for to evade detection, Stede begun going by the name Captain Thomas. Stede also renamed his boat the Royal James. He changed the name and moved on. Nobody knew. At first, Stede pretended that he was trading with vessels he captured. I'm gonna take all your shit, but I give you this empty bottle kind of thing. Soon this ceased and Stede flat out pirated. During this period, Stede would finally begin carving out his own deadly pirate name through abusing his men and torturing and killing his prisoners.
He went full pirate.
He went full Blackbeard. It's said that Stede was the only pirate who legitimately made his captives walk the plank. Stede took another 11 vessels during this period, taking many prisoners along the way. Stede usually stripped and released the ships he captured, but sloops Francis and Fortune became part of Stede's new fleet. The sloops struggled to keep up with Stede, and Stede threatened to sink his own boats. For the first time, Stede also divided earnings amongst the crew rather than employing them.
He's learning. You could say Blackbeard made him possibly one of the most feared pirates of all time.
When the word spread about the gentleman pirate, the governor of South Carolina, Robert Johnson, commissioned Colonel William Rhett to hunt Stede down, amongst others. The primary target was actually pirate legend Charles Vane, but Vane eluded Rhett. At this time, Stede had entered the beginnings of North Carolina's Cape Fear River. The Revenge, aka Royal James, was a bit battered and taking on water. Once anchored, a small ship passed, which Stede took and broke down to repair the Royal James. Bonnet reportedly intended to wait out hurricane season there in a place called Bonnet's Creek. On the 26th of September 1718, Rhett arrived at Cape Fear River with 2 8-gun sloops, the Sea Nymph and the Henry. Stede thought that these were merchant ships again and sent 3 canoes over to attack the 130-strong military crew. The flagship Henry had actually run aground, so the canoes got rather close before realising what they were about to attack, turned around and pegged it. By this time, the sun had set, and you know what that means? Rising tide. The Henry rose free. Stede brought all 46 of his crew aboard the Royal James, planning to valiantly fight his way to sea rather than flee down the river. At daybreak, on the 27th of September 1718, Bonnet sailed straight at the ships and Rhett opened fire. The Battle of Cape Fear River begun.
Damn, son. So, after being screwed over by Blackbeard, he snapped.
Mm-hmm. One-track mind wanted Blackbeard.
He was like, you know what? All this nicey shit has got me nowhere. All it's done is get me fucked over. So he was like, fuck it.
He went dark Stede.
He went rogue. Yeah. Rogue Stede.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But he consistently makes poor decisions.
No, yeah, of course.
Any ship he sees, he thinks it's a merchant ship and attacks.
I suppose if he's looking... Is it more so that he thinks they're merchant ships? Or these ships have expertly disguised themselves as merchant ships?
Well, either way, he still made a rash decision rather than checking it out.
True.
2 of Rhett's sloops split up to trap Stede. Stede sailed close to the river's edge to escape, but ran his Royal James aground. The sloops too ran aground, leaving only the Henry active. In range, there was a 5 or so hour stalemate as musket shots were fired. 12 of Stede's men were killed, and 10 of Rhett's were killed, along with 14 of Rhett's men being injured. Stede's men enthusiastically encouraged Rhett's men to board. Stede patrolled his deck, pistol in hand, threatening to kill any pirate who pussied out.
He's gone full pirate captain now.
He's gone Stede Beard.
He's gone Barbosa.
Yarr. As the tide begun rising again, Rhett's ships freed, but Stede remained stranded. Stede watched helplessly as his opponents repaired their boats and advanced. Outnumbered 3-1, Stede ordered his gunner to torch the Royal James's gunpowder. George Ross, however, was overruled by the remaining crew who surrendered. Rhett returned to Charlestown with his new pirate prisoners on October the 3rd, 1718. Despite his men being held in the dungeons beneath Charleston's old provost, Stede was held as guest of the provost sheriff Nathaniel Partridge alongside Stede's crew David Heriot and Ignatius Pell. Perhaps related, perhaps not, but Partridge and Stede were members of the same church back in Barbados. The decision to house Stede separately was probably more related to the desire to keep Stede away from his crew to prevent elaborate escape plans and cover up theories from being developed before their trial. Despite that, there would indeed be a plan. An elaborate plan. On the 24th of October 1718, Stede and Heriot disappeared.
God damn. Ooh. Stede has gone from pussy to pirate.
Mm-hmm. What are you thinking about where they disappeared?
I'm wondering how. Like, were they helped? Although they were guests of the sheriff, did they have free reign to go where they wanted? Or were they like, you're guests, but you're locked in this room?
Yeah, it's hard to say for definite. I think it would be fair to speculate that they were supervised.
And still managed to get away. Inside job. Do you reckon Stede was a charmer? Or Harriet?
I think Stede was, because Stede had quite a well-to-do background, obviously, as the gentleman.
And if Stede was inclined, as some theorize, maybe he spoke to some of his captors and got them to look the other way, promise some things.
There could have been some bribery, there could have been some former loyalty, there could have been some manipulation, there could have been some sucking off, yeah. Who knows?
Got himself a way out.
Yeah. So you're going for ball tickling as your main theory here?
100%.
It's said that to escape...
He tickled some balls.
He tickled some major ballage. Stede cunningly donned the outfit of a female of the time and snuck by unseen. Didn't see that coming, did you, sir?
No.
Stede and Harriet were accompanied by an enslaved person and a Native American and made for the shores of Charlestown Harbour, having been provided with arms and canoes allegedly by Richard Tuckerman, a trader and smuggler who owned the canoes. En route, the winds forced the group onto Sullivan's Island. Rhett was again sent to hunt for Stede, and indeed found Stede once again. Harriet was shot dead.
Damn.
The two others injured, and Stede captured once more. Stede cannot get away from this man. During Stede's second capture, an uprising actually took place, but Stede remained a prisoner. On November the 10th, 1718, Stede stood trial in front of Sir Nicholas Trott. Trott had already presided over the trials of Stede's crew while Stede was on the run. Most hung. During the trial, the captains of the Francis and the Fortune were present to testify, and Stede was therefore charged with 2 counts of piracy. Ignatius had also turned on Stede during his own trial, though also claimed that the quartermaster had more power over the crew than Stede. During the trial, Stede represented himself and questioned the witnesses. Stede claimed that the crew acted against his will. It didn't really help Stede's case that he was known to have flogged 2 members of his crew, a punishment many crews wouldn't accept unless respecting of their captain. 2 days later, Trott sentenced Stede to death. Was representing himself another bad decision?
I mean, who's really going to represent a pirate in this situation?
Well, I guess that people had to, I don't know.
But
can you be unrepresented in the 1700s?
What I do question is whether he was clever. He had one of them turn and say that the quartermaster had more power than him.
Yep.
So why didn't you lean into that and say, I was just there, I was funding it. They were the pirates, I was just there like as the figurehead.
Yeah, they made me, and they needed my money, so they made me do it all. They made me back them and held me captive on the ship. Ask anyone, no one respected me. I was just there.
If I'm this so-called captain that everyone thinks I am, I should have respect of this entire crew. But if the quartermaster has more respect than the captain, am I really the captain?
So, Stede repeatedly wrote letters literally begging for his life to be spared. When those were declined, Stede offered to have his arm cut off so that he could no longer pirate in exchange for his life.
Be a one-armed pirate, son.
When that was declined, Stede offered his leg. Stede's begging resulted in the town beginning to pity Stede, and so it was written, particularly the ladies. Oh, Stede! Papers reported that Stede's execution was repeatedly delayed. Eventually, on December the 10th, 1718, our hero Stede was taken to the gallows at White Point Gardens on Charlestown Harbour. Stede was escorted this time by many soldiers. He wasn't escaping. Peculiarly, the group were followed by a young girl holding a bouquet of flowers. After arriving at the site, as the noose was tied around Stede's neck, as the soldiers watched on, the girl silently approached Stede and handed him the bouquet. The frickin' flowers.
Bouquet. There you go.
The bouquet. The bunch of flowers. 29 other pirates too were taken to the gallows on this day. All 30 were hung.
Did they get bouquets?
No, just Stede. The pirate bodies were left to flap about in the breeze for 4 days to deter any pirate crossing the Charlestown Harbour. Pirates didn't just use the harbour though, for pirates would often row up Vanderhorst's Creek to go somewhat more unseen. To deter these sneaky pirates too, the bodies, including Stede's, were cut down and thrown into the creek which ran from the beginning of the Cooper River toward Meeting Street. Any passing pirate would see this horrific, shallow grave, the final resting place of gentleman pirate Stede Bonnet.
So the bonnet ended with a bouquet?
Yes, a bunch of flowers.
Ooh, that is not how I expected it to end.
Didn't end well for Mr. Stede.
No, it really didn't.
Really, really didn't. Grisly death, you could say. Why do you think the girl gave him flowers?
Yeah, I was just wondering, was this little girl just random?
Yeah.
Like,
people weren't generally allowed to approach people in these situations.
then why was she allowed?
That's a phenomenal question, sir.
Was she a ghost little girl? Was she a daughter of one of the mothers that had taken a shining to old Stede?
I really couldn't say. Weird.
I'm quite surprised. When you watch like pirate films or anything like that and you see the bodies of pirates hanging in the wind, for example, Pirates of the Caribbean, where Sparrow sees the pirates, he takes his hat off.
Yep.
Not his hat.
Yeah, salute.
I suppose pirates aren't really out for revenge in that way, are they? But I'm also surprised that a group of pirates don't sail into the town and just ransack it.
I think towns were
For that reason.
more well protected, whereas boats on the seas were easier in some senses to attack. If towns were fortified, then you're kind of signing your own death warrant if you try and storm. It looks a lot easier in the movies than it is in real life, I think.
100%. Unless you're ghost pirates.
And also, one less pirate means more booty to plunder for yourself.
True.
Greed goes a long way. Over time, the world has changed. Vanderhorst's Creek has since been filled in and has become Water Street, but Stede's spirit lingers on. Yes, my friend. In the location where Stede hung, the very place, the ghosts of pirates can be seen still hanging from the oak trees at White Point Gardens. By pirates, I mean Stede! I don't want to spend too long on this because we've gone long. Stede isn't caught on camera much, but Mr. Moonwalker quickly checked this photo of the oak trees around the spot we are referring to. I've taken the liberty of zooming in on this image for Granville, as when you zoom in, you can make out a distorted, pained and almost witch-like face hanging from a tree, screaming without a body. There's actually a headstone for Stede here, which I'll show you at the end of the research notes, Mr. Moonwalker. But in essence, Stede lingers on.
Okay. So what I see here is... what are these called?
A head?
No. The kind of thing with all the pillars and the roof thing.
The plinths that go up onto a roof holding it over. Gosh. Oh, I can't remember. That's really annoying. It's a really obvious word.
But I'm looking at some trees and I cannot see the pained face that he's talking about.
Shut up!
If anything, I can see an evil bunny.
You can't see like the scream face.
No. See an evil bunny.
Mr. Moonwalker's mind clearly isn't sensitive to such things.
I'm literally looking at bunny ears.
Ghost bunny? I'll take it.
I'm going to turn my laptop to show you what I mean. But that bit going up there is the long ear. That bit's the flapped ear. And then if you look, there's two eye sockets and it looks like two bunny teeth.
Okay.
So you see...
The spirit's head is like a quarter of that size.
Okay, I'm not seeing that, but you see the bunny ears, right? You see what I'm talking about?
I can see what you mean, but that doesn't look like a bunny to me. Because I've circled right around, the head is pretty much in the centre of that circle. And because I'm focused on that, that's all I can see, really.
Yeah, can't see it, I'm afraid.
Pretend.
Oh, I see it there! Right next to the evil bunny. What I do see is a pained face next to it, though.
I'll take it.
Or not next to it, but up there in the trees. There.
I can see what you're talking about there, and I hadn't actually noticed that one. There's two in this image. Two pirates hanging from the tree, see?
A bunny and a pained tree.
If you stand at the foot of Water Street and look out to the waters of the Cooper River under a full moon, you can see the faces of all of the dead pirates just below the waterline.
I love the stipulations to these things. It must be a full moon at 8:15 on a Thursday.
It's when the spirits are at their strongest.
And you must be wearing one shoe and no socks.
More specifically, Stede Bonnet himself continues to haunt Water Street to this very day in the spot his body was thrown. I've also seen accounts of people hearing Stede's wailing, fearing, resisting passing over to the other side. Do you think that's because he's scared of meeting back up with his wife?
He doesn't want to hear the nagging. She can still be alive, though. I mean...
Oh, not today.
Not today. But, I mean, if he's been resisting that whole time...
What if he's...
Or the resistance is his will. He's so headstrong on finding Blackbeard, he doesn't want to pass over.
Even in the spirit world, he's still looking for him.
He doesn't know that he's dead. And he thinks Blackbeard's still out there. This is him.
But he's tethered to this spot, so he can't.
On, yeah.
He's like, why can't I leave?
That is it.
I had another thought. We discussed several times two ideas on ghosts. One, they're tethered to the place something significant happened in their lives. Two, they're tethered to where they want to be. What if Stede is tethered to where he died and Stede's wife is tethered to Stede so he can't escape the nagging?
Can you imagine if she's not even nagging?
She might not have been. That might just be his perception. Yeah. He just wants to do stupid shit because he makes bad decisions and she's telling him she's giving it to him real.
Terrible decisions.
Mm-hmm. Your old family member? You said it.
I said possibly.
To be fair, jokes aside, you could be. Who knows? Most people are related to most people these days, like if you go back far enough.
I have made some stupid decisions in my time.
There there was a lot of information today, so in a lengthy brief summary, we've covered the life, death and afterlife of gentleman pirate Stede Bonnet. Stede inherited 400 acres of land and was pretty well off with a wife and 4 children, but after a child passed away and with that wife allegedly nagging, Stede deserted his family and brought a pirate ship which he named Revenge. Stede also employed a crew rather than following the typical pirate practice of promising to share booty with a life of freedom on the seas. Stede headed for Virginia and targeted the shipping commerce there with initial success. Stede usually left strip ships and crew, but when encountering ships from Barbados, Stede burned them down. In September 1717, less than 6 months into his pirate life, Stede headed for pirate capital Nassau. En route, Stede encountered a Spanish ship and attacked, taking a heavy loss and nearly dying in the process. The Revenge barely survived, and many of Stede's crew were not so lucky. The Revenge drifted into Nassau in complete disrepair. In Nassau, legendary pirate Blackbeard saw Stede's disheartened crew and took over Stede's Revenge, convincing Stede to let Blackbeard show Stede how to pirate properly, how to do it. Together, Blackbeard and Stede would plunder ships in the double figures, striking fear into those who sailed the seas. Some witnesses from these attacks on the east coast of America reported seeing Stede wandering the decks in his nightshirt, lacking any command. In December 1717, Stede and Blackbeard would part ways. Come March 1718, Stede was steeding and failed to take a ship called the Protestant Caesar. Blackbeard would come across Stede shortly after and team up once more, with Blackbeard's man, Richards, taking on command of Stede's Revenge, which is still the name of Granville's ex-car. Stede was now a guest on Queen Anne's Revenge, stripped of command completely, but Blackbeard kept Stede around, much to the surprise of the crew. Stede and Blackbeard plundered many a ship and increased the size of their flotilla before blockading Charlestown in May 1718. After this, Blackbeard ran the Queen Anne's Revenge aground and damaged the Adventure attempting to save it. Stede was sent on to see North Carolina Governor Charles Eden in Bathtown, and Stede was granted his royal pardon. When Stede returned, Blackbeard had stripped the Revenge and the Adventure was sunk, whilst the other sloop was missing, along with Blackbeard and crew. Stede gathered up his nearby crew and some further crew members marooned on an island nearby and chased Blackbeard for the rest of his life, never finding him. Unfulfilled.
Do you reckon that whole time Blackbeard's just chilling, not knowing this is coming?
Absolutely,
like after
completely clueless.
Oblivious to the fact Stede's after him the whole time.
I reckon he'd gathered that Stede would be caught pretty quickly. He must have known Stede's awful decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Stede quickly returned to piracy, perhaps because Blackbeard had stripped all supplies, or perhaps because it was simply the pirate's life for Stede. Stede saw more success, taking about 11 boats, whilst Colonel William Rhett was commissioned to hunt Stede. Stede was at this time around Cape Fear River, and Rhett caught up to Stede. On the 27th of September 1718, the Battle of Cape Fear River ensued. Ultimately, Rhett captured Stede. In total, it appears that Stede seized 53 ships during his pirate career, but he is perhaps better remembered for nearly being killed, losing in battle, and losing command of his ship during his first year as a pirate, before being taken over by Blackbeard, double-crossed by Blackbeard, and then getting caught whilst hunting for Blackbeard. Stede, however, did have his own memorable moments, such as allegedly dressing as a lady to escape from captivity before being recaptured on Sullivan's Island. Stede wouldn't be so lucky next time and was hung on the 10th of December 1718, not much more than a year after his pirate career begun. Stede did have 3 children, however, and Moonwalker may carry this bloodline. Much of what we know comes from transcripts from Stede's trial, which brings us to Stede's ghost. Stede's ghost can be seen in the location Stede was executed, swinging from the oak trees and screaming. Stede's ghost also loiters around Water Street, where Stede's body was coldly dumped. That is it. Is there anything you want to go back over before we conclude, Mr. Moonwalker?
Not anything other than the fact that I just think it's hilarious that Blackbeard just continued on without even battering an eyelid. That Stede was like trying to follow him and get to him. Like, he went about his business. We kind of covered what happened to Blackbeard, but that whole time Stede was like, revenge, I'm gonna get you, Blackbeard. And Blackbeard was like, la 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 la, ooh, pirate ship, oh, I'm gonna take that.
So it's rumoured that Stede and Blackbeard had a romantic relationship. Obviously, that is a primary driving force within the TV show Our Flag Means Death that's come out in the last year or two.
Not heard of it.
I was going to say it stars Stede Bonnet. What's that guy called? Taika Waititi or Rikiti or something?
Oh, really?
Plays Blackbeard, and Rhys Darby plays Stede Bonnet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, me and Beck really enjoyed it. I think we might have even watched it on something like iPlayer.
God damn.
Yeah, because I'd heard about it after we covered the Blackbeard episode that it was coming out, and looked for it, and it was never on anything. Then I think, it's one of those random ones, not like Netflix or Disney. Okay. But yeah, there's not really any evidence to support or to prove otherwise in terms of their connection. It's just unusual that Blackbeard targeted those who Stede was unsuccessful against. So why? And it's known, obviously, that many pirates did dilly-dally on the seas because they were lonely and needed a good time, etc., etc. One more thing I thought of before we do conclude. Why was he targeting, he saw ships, he was generally all right about it, he plundered them, but then he sent them on their way, didn't kill them. But he absolutely murked anyone from Barbados. Do you think that was to cover his identity, or did he have a hatred? Did he hate his former life? Yeah.
I suppose it depends on how he left, doesn't it? If
he just vanished.
Did he just up and leave and then just doesn't want people to know he's still alive?
Literally, just one day, his wife woke up and he wasn't there. He was gone.
Every ship that's to do.
Sees absolute red mist and destroys them.
It could be a really weird thing that if he's just up and vanished, the land and stuff that he owns stays in his wife's possession. Therefore, burning everything or everything to do with Barbados, saying that he's still alive, it reverts. But I really don't know.
There could be some sort of loophole. We've heard that in other cases before, haven't we? Like the guy who had all the bricks laid on him and whatnot and wouldn't confess because it meant his family would keep in the witch trials. But yeah, that is it. So are you saying that it was Spookies? Are you saying that it was Stede's?
It's actually really good to hear what happened to Stede in the end, and quite oddly funny. The fact that he was chasing down Blackbeard and Blackbeard had no idea. But
Blackbeard was out doing Blackbeard things.
Do I believe that his ghost is still there to this day? No. I really don't. I think that's just a story that's gone with time. There's no credence to it.
Brings tourism to the area, potentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to be honest, this one was mainly an excuse just to cover Stede again.
I mean, if you're in an area where there's lots of rocks and hollow kind of things, but you're by the sea, a lot of wind is going to sound different as it goes through rocks. So yeah, no, I do not believe that.
Wailing whistle.
Yep. Stede's ghost is there. No.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it was Spooky's area. What?
Not Spooky's area.
But yeah, my gosh, I do love a pirate story. Stede lived a really interesting life and probably gets a bit of a bad reputation for being shit when actually, eventually, he kind of grew into the role, didn't he? I mean, sure, he got caught pretty quickly following a very silly decision, but still, he did capture a fair few ships. I also think that it's entirely plausible that Stede is still around. The man begged for his life so hard. Stede clearly didn't want to leave, and maybe he didn't. I mean, obviously I'm completely bullshit and I don't think it's spookies, but you never know. You never know.
You never know.
So, is there anything you want to mention before we close out?
My car is as dead as Stede.
Your old car.
Stede's revenge, yes.
Not Stede's overcompensation.
Stede's vengeance is alive and kicking, son.
Folks, you know what it's called, really.
Overcompensation. I just like to go very, very fast.
Overcompensation.
And I like to hear the rumble from the exhaust.
Uh-huh. That is
You say overcompensation, fuck off. You'd have it if you were allowed to have it. You're just not allowed it.
That is a wrap for today. Move on. Thank you for listening to But It Was Aliens. Let's close out. As always, when we cover pirates, I've indulged a little here. And if you want to hear us indulge some more, you can head on over to patreon.com/But It Was Aliens, where we complete a monthly probe into paranormal events too girthy for the general public. You can get your hands around this for the cost of a coffee. Don't open your mouth, Granville. If you have suggestions for future episode topics, you can hit us up on the Twitter at But It Was Aliens.
Now known as X.
That is it from us this episode. So until next time, when you finish an audiobook, have you read it? The truth is up there. #.
I have finished many an audiobook and never read it.